So, as the video title says, molesters, or something like that, whatever I decide to make the title. Man, I have come to the conclusion there are a bunch of sick, perverted people in this country at least. And what I mean by that is they molest. Not kids, not adults, they molest radios. Because that's what's going on to these poor things. People are sexually molesting these poor radios. My God, and here's another one. So this is God, what is this thing? It is a Connex, CX-4300HP. So yeah, this is a high power one. Actually has what most people would call a pill for a final. It's got a 2FC, what is it, like a 22 something or other, 90 I think. Yeah, 2SC 2290 for a final. I had done another radio for this customer, a Magnum something or other. I'm not much on the export radios. I repair them, but yeah, I'm not a big fan of them. But yeah, right off the top of my head, I know it was a Magnum because he actually mentioned that. But anyhow, that one's working great. He's tickled pink with it. Was using this radio. He's an over-the-road truck driver, and apparently it fell out of his overhead. Hit the floor, I guess, and he thought it had broken the microphone connector. I initially told him I thought it was the sheet metal was bent. Well, actually, it wasn't either of those. Actually, the original nut that holds the microphone connector on, they're made out of brass. They're chrome-plated brass. It actually stripped the threads out of it, and the nut was actually on sideways, so the microphone jack was cockeyed. So I was able to get it unscrewed. It actually didn't hurt the jack at all, and just put another nut on it, and it's fine. So that's why the faceplate's off of it. And wanted to clean it up. And the easiest way, honestly, to clean a faceplate and the knobs is just take it off. It's only 4 screws hold it on. So he did want the electrolytic capacitors replaced in this. This radio does have some age to it. Now, I have to say, and he even mentioned that, the radio is in really good condition, and it is. You can see the faceplate. Usually that's the first thing that's going to get worn out is the lettering on the faceplate there. Yeah, bezel's really nice. It needs to be wiped down, but overall it's in really nice shape. Covers are in good condition. So you wanted the electrolytic capacitors replaced because, yeah, 90s vintage, it's starting to get to that point, especially if you consider the cheap quality of caps that they use in these things. And speaking of caps, I'll need to do a separate video on that. I got a we've been screwing you notice in the mail today. The screwing you notice was that since 2002, a lot of the companies that make these little guys, these electrolytic capacitors, have been screwing us. Now, luckily, most of the companies, or the capacitors that I use, the actual manufacturers, they're not the ones that have been screwing over people. But I wouldn't have gotten the notification if I hadn't bought some of them at some point in the past. And I'm probably going to do a separate video about this. Because actually, I got a bunch of these cards under different names and different business, my personal name, business name, and whatnot. But yeah, it's just to say that these companies, Hitachi, Soshin Electronics, Rubicon was surprising, Holy Stone, and very surprised, Nippon United Chemicon apparently have been price fixing and overcharging for electrolytic capacitors for over a decade now, since 2002. But yeah, that's a whole other story. But anyhow, he wanted the caps replaced in this, so that's been done, and anything else that needs to be done. So he did say also that after the radio, I guess, took the fall out of the overhead, he was having problems with the receive audio. The meter was still showing that it was receiving a signal, but yeah, it wasn't receiving. So first thing I did, I don't care what this says, they did not make this radio. It's just a regular EPT 3600 14B, which is a Ranger RCI board. Now, I guess Connex made the little amplifier, transistor board there, but other than that, yeah, it's just a regular Ranger radio, no difference. And so the first thing I looked at, of course, anything RCI Ranger, very common, extremely poor soldering quality on their stuff. So anything that has a big plug or connector or anything like that, yeah, you can usually be guaranteed there's going to be at least a couple broken out solder joints. So I went over it, resoldered the whole thing, Replaced the electrolytic capacitors, cleaned the board off, fired it up, and it's receiving fine now. But molesting. Yes, this radio has been molested. Someone has been in here with their doodle stick, and they've been poking at it all right. So, for starters, let me grab my pointy stick here. Why do all of these coils look like they've been stretched as possibly far as they can? Yeah. Now, it's not uncommon to see maybe something like this. You'll see a couple coils spread a little bit, or even something like this. You'll see like maybe there'll be one spread section. That's tuning, because it doesn't have a ferrite core. It's just an air core inductor. That's how you actually tune these coils, is you actually spread or compress the coils together. But yeah, anytime you see them where the coils are pretty much just spread apart to the maximum that they can, you know, until the coils run into other parts, yeah, that's a good sign they've just been screwdrivered. So, and they're screwdrivering, of course, for maximum power off channel, because that's exactly what that does, especially when you spread the coils over here, because you're spreading the coils for the low pass filter circuit, which has absolutely nothing to do with power on channel. All that circuit does is block RF energy from getting out that little wire up to the antenna connector on the 54 megahertz band, which is television. So, yeah, just, but I put it on the spectrum analyzer and the scope, and woohoo, oh my god, yeah, has it ever had the modulation molestation going on. For starters, there we can see a little blue guy. Now, I would have to assume that, judging by the color of every other single resistor in this radio, they're all tan, except for that one. It's blue. So it's been replaced at some point. And then it was apparently, so I'm assuming it was clipped at some point. Somebody fixed it. Somebody like me put in a new resistor. The radio went to another shop and they clipped it again. So yeah, that's got to get fixed. On the other side of the radio, we have common modification, resistor bodged across here, another splatter box modification. This one I actually gotta trace that out. I'm not 100. I don't think that's supposed to be in there. What's that feel like? I feel like there might be two parts in there. I think that's a splatter box mod, but I'll have to check, especially with this yellow, really cheap Chinese looking no-name heat shrink tubing on it. I think that's a splatter box mod, just an audio splatter box mod. I don't think that's factory, but I don't work on a lot of Connexes, so I'll have to take a peek at the schematic and see. But yeah, I think that needs to go too. That definitely needs to go over here. That resistor needs to get put back in circuit on the top side, or bottom side, depending which way you have the radio flipped over. And I think that's probably going to have to go though too. And the reason is this. So there we have the scope and the spectrum analyzer set up to monitor the transmitted signal. So if we key the mic and we whistle into the mic, holy crap, Batman. There is less time that there's actually power going out than there is when there's not power going out. In other words, here, turn on an audio source here. Yeah, it's flatlined more than there is when there's actually modulation going out. So anytime you see that line go flat when you're looking at your modulation package, you adjust your span, not to look at the RF, but to look at the audio modulation package. Yeah, that flat line means there's nothing coming out of the antenna jack. It's flatlined, and then but it should be sinusoidal. And actually, if I turn the volume down, we can get to a point where we can see what it should actually look like. Yeah, right about there, roughly. Yeah. It should come together. It should just pinch and then go back up. It shouldn't stay flat for any length of time. There should never be a flat line. It should come down, basically what some people call the X pattern. So when you look at those sinusoidal little bumps, you should see, it should look like basically an X in between each of those, but it just should just barely cross over, and that's it. And what causes that is molesting your modulation circuit. All they did was disable the AMC circuit. That's it. That's the whole purpose of doing that, is to disable the AMC circuit and splatter all over the RF spectrum, which is what that does. Overmodulation does not do anything. And I say this again and again and again. And here I am, guess what? Saying it again. Overmodulating does absolutely nothing for you on the channel that you're on. If you put the radio, which right now it's on channel 20, if you put the radio on channel 20 and clip all those parts and do all this horse shit to it, you gain absolutely nothing on channel. Does your watt meter swing up higher? Yes, it does. Where is all that that newfound power that the radio is putting out? Well, surprise, surprise, it's not on channel 20. It'll be on the channels adjacent to channel 20, because now you're splattering onto the adjacent channels, and possibly even more than one channel. If you go down to channel 6, you can easily hear that all day long. When you listen to the splatterbox radios down on channel 6, those guys key up, they wipe out channel 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, -1, negative. I mean, I've seen those guys wipe out 10 to 15 channels in either direction because they're running such crappy radios. That's what does it. But the power's not on channel, so it's not doing you any good. It's doing you no good, it's doing that driver transistor no good, and it's definitely not doing that final transistor any good. And it sure in the hell isn't doing that modulation regulator over here any good. That's going to run hot as a firecracker, that's going to run hot as a firecracker, and the drivers, that probably won't get damaged, but the final and the AM regulator are going to be smoking hot if you do a lot of talking running way over modulated like that. Those poor things are just going, ah! They're just redline, is basically what you can think about it. Get in your car, start the engine, and push the gas pedal through the floorboard. That's what you're doing to your radio. It wasn't designed to do that, and it's not doing you any good, other than make you sound horrible on air. People may not want to tell you that because they think they're going to hurt their feelings, but you do. When you do stuff like that, you sound absolutely like crap on air. It's not doing your radio any good. You're shortening the life of components like final transistors and regulator and the AM regulator circuit. If you like repairing your radio because it's burning up on you all the time, by all means, clip away. Have at it. Manufacturers love selling you brand new parts once or twice a year to replace them as you burn them out continuously, or when you finally get to the point where you just burn a hole through your circuit board and you have to go buy a new radio from them. That makes the manufacturers happy. But if you'd like to actually sound halfway decent and not have to repair your radio several times a year or replace it every couple years, use the radio as it was designed. Believe it or not, even these black box, what I call black box junk radios, they're not actually all that bad, honestly, if you're properly aligned. It's when people come in with their gold, well, they're not even gold plated, they're solid gold screwdrivers, and they come in here and they just twist everything to the maximum, or they don't even bother adjusting it, they just clip the parts out to disable the circuits, so there is no adjustment anymore. It's just hard on your radio. It's hard on my hearing because you sound so bad. It's hard on everybody else's hearing. You're interfering with half of the CB channel. Thank God we don't have analog television anymore, or you'd be wiping out the television band as well. So, I need to get those parts put back in. Like I said, I need to take a little, whatever the crap is in that yellow heat shrink tubing. I'm pretty sure that just needs to go bye-bye. Get the AMC circuit put back to working order the way it's supposed to be working. Do a transceiver alignment on this, and then we can take a look at what it looks like after I'm done. It should be rated 100% modulation. That's it, no more. Soon, because remember, as soon as that flat top, either the waveforms start to flat top, or it pinches down to and stays at 0, you're actually putting out less power. And there's actually power going out now that's not on channel. That's the big killer. Your watt meter, and that's the thing. These meters, they're stupid. there's no other way to put it in simple terms other than the meters that are in radios, honestly, they're stupid. They're a very, very simple circuit. They don't honestly measure modulation very well, if at all. You'll see the needle swing. Oh yeah, man, you can make that needle just bounce off of the other side of the meter scale. And occasionally you'll get meters where they're improperly adjusted. So, you know, if it's a regular radio with, let's say, a single normal final, where the meter should be on 4 watts, or, you know, where the red and the green scale meet, you know, you key the mic. But you'll occasionally see them where the meter is adjusted down farther when you key the microphone. They do that to keep the needle from beating across this side of the meter face, because they've disabled all the circuits, and when they modulate, the needle just goes bang, 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 or actually this way goes, you know, slap, 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 and they're trying to prevent that. You know, a real meter like that, you want to see what it does? Because that's actually what's hooked up. Goes to this coax cable, goes up to a bird directional coupler, comes down through that through watt meter, and then to a dummy load. So the RF energy is going through that, and then the sample port off of the directional coupler is what gets split and goes to these two instruments. Well, watch that watt meter. I key the microphone. You can see as I talk, the needle doesn't hardly move. But actually it does. What direction is the needle going? The needle's actually going backwards. That's because every time as I'm talking, when you're seeing that flat line right there, there's actually less power going out. See that? As I talk, the needle is going the wrong direction. Yet if you look at the meter on the radio, what direction does the needle go on the radio? It goes up. It's a sales gimmick, people. That's all it is. You take your radio somewhere, they go clip, 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 snip, snip, solder in some bodge parts to make the needle do just that. Swing, 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 when in reality, your needle's actually going down, down, down. You're putting out less power. It just, when will people learn? So, we are going to do our best to unmolest this radio, try to put it back so it's at least a halfway decent working radio, even though it is one of the exports. Like I say, I give these radios a lot of grief, but honestly, they're not that bad. I guess the biggest problem I have with radios like this is these are usually the ones that you see that are molested the worst. Because people see, oh man, huge final, I can get all kinds of power out of this. No, you can't. Whatever the manufacturer said this radio should be putting out, that's what this radio should be putting out. You go trying to squeeze every ounce of power out of this thing that you possibly can, you're going to end up replacing that big final and the regulator, and like I say, possibly doing lots of other damage to your radio. So people just never, ever, ever learn. So let me get to it. Let me get that stuff fixed up. Then we can take a look at it, what it looks like afterwards. And like I say, there's not a lot of work I need to do there. Just replace a resistor. What do I got? Remove the resistor from over here. Probably remove that other crap that they've got in the audio circuit over here, and that, which they're probably just bypassing something. I think I remember seeing that in something else before, and I've had to pull it out. But yeah, it's just nonsense. Just absolute nonsense. People are charging you for work that makes your radio sound worse and put out less power. But it looks good on the meter on the radio. Or it looks good on one of those cheap-ass junk Dosey or Paradynamics or any of those other crappy meters. Yeah, the needle will go bounce back just like the meter in the radio here. It will swing up. But when you look at a real watt meter, the needle goes down, 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 not up, up, up. So, hopefully enough of these videos get out that people, eventually the light bulb starts going off in people's head and they'll realize, maybe I shouldn't do that. So, I'll be back. Okay, well, I have the volume turned up. It's hooked up to a dummy load. Anyhow, so I have pretty much put this radio's virginity back in, so it's no longer a molested stepchild like it was before. Again, head shaking. I should have a stiff neck, all the head shaking I do. So yeah, took out the cut off blue resistor, cut off the one that was bodged on the bottom, took off this stupid thing here, and just a resistor in there. Hadn't noticed before, but the modulation limiter was also missing, so I had to replace that. It's a 2SC945 transistor. So put that transistor in, replaced one resistor, removed two other ones, and guess what? The modulation adjustment works now. And the radio will actually sound good now. So that's all I've done. I haven't done an alignment to it yet. Yeah, one thing I did do was I squeezed all the coils back together. I'll see if the low-pass filter section actually needs to be adjusted. Actually, shoot, we just do that right now. We'll just check and see what it looks like at 54 megahertz. So let's see, frequency, what the heck am I on here? Channel 20, so 27, what the heck did I say I'm on? So, and it just went into calibrate. Give it a second. Okay. Yeah, that actually looks really good. There's nothing... nothing there, which is just what we want to see. Oh shoot, I put in 27. Duh. Let me try that again at 50. Oh my god. Come on, fingers. Let's try that one more time. 54.41. Grief. Ah, there we do have a sizable, well, I wouldn't say sizable peak, but now let's see here. Can we do anything for that guy? Yeah, I'm actually spreading that one coil apart, and the peak's actually getting bigger. Yeah, I'm spreading another coil apart, and the peak's again getting bigger. That might be all the smaller I can get it. It's one thing I really don't like about these radios. They just weren't designed to run that clean to start with. I may even have to play around with... Though, what do we got there? Rate at, say minus 51. Oh, for Pete's sakes. I'm having a butterfinger day here, punching numbers in. And what do we got there? Yeah, that definitely needs to come down a little bit further. I'm going to turn the mic gain down here. So about 32 dB down. Yeah, that's not very good. I definitely got to do something with that. And like I say, if I tried spreading these apart to bring the 54 megahertz second harmonic down, it actually went up. So yeah, these definitely need to be where they are. But yeah, these radios, honestly, just out of the box, these were never stellar performers in the filtering department. I mean, they're black box export radios to start with. It's not like these radios meet any specification on the planet. They are what they are. But yeah, that's still pretty crappy. And honestly, I don't know. I really don't have any experience with these radios that have this monster transistor crammed in here. I don't know how high the second harmonic emissions are on these radios. That may be common on these. I may play around with this filter circuit here and see if I can get that peak down a little bit more. But the main thing is we wanted to look at modulation. So we'll turn the audio tone back on. And look at that. Clean modulation. Not splattering all over the RF spectrum. And we don't have boxcars there with a huge flat line in between each sinusoidal wave modulation package. So yeah, that looks so much better. So now I can actually do the rest of the alignment on this. And like I said, I may play around with the 54 megahertz trap circuit a little bit because that's pretty horrible. It's only like 32 dB down for second harmonic. And this thing does get warm. Damn, regulator's not bad, but whew. Boy, this backside, that just doesn't seem like much of a heatsink for that big transistor. Yeah, that definitely just seems a little bit too warm for me. And I notice there's no bias adjustment for that. Really? Who designed that? There's a bias adjustment for the driver. Where's the bias adjustment circuit for the final? There is none. There is no nothing. Yeah. Again, black box radio. Not the pinnacle of engineering. They are what they are, and you gotta kind of try to work with what you have. But yeah, it's definitely already one heck of a lot better than it was. So anyhow, let me get the alignment done on this, because actually the transmit frequency is actually fairly close. I think it's only off like 100 hertz. It might not even be that much. My own peak, yeah, continuous peak, so 27205.033. So yeah, actually it's only high 33 hertz. That's actually really close. That's way, way, way within spec. That's so close to being in spec, it's, you know, dead on. It's not even funny. So yeah, somebody probably did an alignment on this, or they attempted to do a, well, halfway splatterbox alignment, and apparently they got the frequency very close. Shoot, it could have drifted that much off, just temperature changes, 33 hertz. But yeah, that's a good sign though. So anyhow, let me get the rest of it done, and we'll be back. Yeah, we just have one of those head slap moments, or palm, or face plant, or whatever the heck you want to call it. Yeah, I'm sitting here trying to figure out, man, you know, like I said, this thing is just, even, I mean, realizing big transistor, but I was like, it just seems to be getting too hot, and, you know, second harmonics, just, yeah, this thing, just, something's not right here. Then it dawned on me, what is this big resistor and capacitor bodged across the final? That's not supposed to be there. I don't know. I've already unsoldered and cleaned up one side of it. So, I think someone, well, I don't know. I've given up, honestly, on trying to figure out what goes through people's heads when they do crap. But I kind of get the sneaky suspicion that they may have looked at the schematic and thought maybe these two parts were missing, because there is supposed to be a resistor and a capacitor in series between here and here. The problem is, they're not supposed to be bodged across with through-hole components. They're already here. There's the 150 ohm resistor right there, and right there is the 0.1 microfarad capacitor. They're in series. This resistor attaches right here. You come across this trace to this resistor, come to the other side. You see those two little holes? Those are vias, so it goes to a circuit trace on the other side of this board. Comes up to here. There's the little vias, so it comes back up to this side of the board and goes to the capacitor, which then goes to this side of the transistor. Yeah, I don't know if somebody thought these were missing and they put these in across it, but by doing that, they've, you know, doubled the capacitance. Or no, actually, well, let's see, what would that be? Now, it's in, yeah, it's in parallels. So they've doubled the capacitance because capacitance adds in parallel, and they've effectively lowered the resistance because the resistors are in parallel. I just, So, yeah, and actually, I just checked it. I unsoldered that, cleaned this side up. I got to unsolder that side. I'll, you know, suck the solder off of that and resolder it. But I pulled this off, and my power went up, actually. The output power on the radio actually increased when I desoldered this one side and just tried it out, just to see if my assumption was correct. So, yeah, so, yeah, that's, get that the rest of the way taken out, and then I can do the transceiver alignment on this thing. Oh, boy. Okay, so here she is all back together now, ready to be boxed up. So, moral of the story, don't sexually molest your radio. And if it has been, undo it. It's just bad for the radio. It's bad for other people's ears because you sound horrible. And it's just going to, honestly, over the long term, it's just going to end up costing you more money because you're going to end up fixing your radio more often. Oh, and I did, you know, got that resistor cap bodge off the final transistor in there, and that actually did clean it up a little bit more on the 54 megahertz. That brought the second harmonic down some more. Really nothing to listen to today. It's like 100 and something degrees outside. Yeah, it's just one of those scorcher days. Even the radio waves are hiding. Mini bowl's dead. Yeah, even channel 6 is dead. So that little bit of needle deflection on 7 is just one of my birdie frequencies here. It's just... Yep, even the radio waves are in hiding, except for the occasional passing truck driver. So, in any case, there you go. There's a Connex, whatever the hell was this, CX-4300HP. Like I say, the main reason he sent it in was it took a tumble. Didn't actually damage the mic jack. He thought it needed a new microphone jack. All it was actually this nut. It's a brass, chrome-plated brass nut. It just stripped the threads, and the nut was actually on the mic jack like that, sideways. So, just put a new nut on it. That's all that really needed. And then removed all the modifications. So, it's a clean-sounding radio now, not a distorted-sounding radio like it... God, that just... when will people learn? Well, obviously, this customer has learned. Yeah, stuff like that, no good. Get it undone. Because he's happy with the last one I did. Yeah, it just, man, save your money, people. Honestly, most radios like this, and not just this radio, I don't care who makes it. If you buy a brand new radio, this is probably the point, or the to get across. When you buy a brand new radio, will sending it to somebody, or if, the company or person you bought it off of, having them do an alignment to the radio, a brand new out-of-the-box radio, will it do you any good? Probably yes, because honestly, most radios, gotta remember, they're cheap, really cheap. I mean, people may think some of these radios are expensive, especially when you get into the big high-power ones, but honestly, in the grand scheme of things, they're very cheap. That is an expensive radio. That is not an expensive radio. And quality, this huge difference, and that's where a lot of what you'll see is not just the quality of the radio itself, but the work that was put into it at the factory. Both are more or less, well, I don't even want to say even like the Yaesu, Kenwoods, and Icoms are. I mean, they are assembly line manufactured, because everything's done, or a large majority of it's done with machine work, but there's a lot more handwork goes into those, and just attention to detail when they do the alignment. That's the one thing that's lacking in pretty much all CBs. Honestly, I don't care who makes it, CBs or export radios, is the attention to detail in the alignment. They have a spec, they adjust. Basically, you can just imagine them sitting there with a row of lights in front of them, red and green. When it gets to green, they stop. That's good enough. It's in spec. It meets their spec. And it just goes on down the line. They don't take the time to sit there and back and forth through the receiver, trying to squeeze every last ounce of receive sensitivity out of a radio. It receives good enough, down the line it goes, and off to you it goes. So yes, when you send it to somebody, or if it's, like I say, a brand new radio, you're having the shop that you bought it from do an alignment to it, yes, there are gains to be had. The problem is, a lot of shops will try to sell you power mods. That's what you should avoid. Now, just because they're offering you power mods doesn't make them a bad shop. Well, that's arguable, but I don't want to say that makes them a bad shop. But when they offer stuff like that, you should just decline. Get the alignment. Yes, your receiver sensitivity will pick up. They can do the alignment, and honestly, most radios out of the box won't do their advertised power out of the box. It's always a little bit low. So yes, they'll usually turn up the power. If they're doing just an alignment, it'll still be turned up for better power, but it's still in the safe range that the radio was designed to do, so it's not going to self-destruct over time. And it's not going to be a splatter box. That's the problem is when you tell them you want the super whack pack, or whatever they might call it. Oh, we're going to give you swing, man, your needle's going to bend, it's going to have so much swing. That's what you don't want. Just, sorry, that's okay, I'll pass on that. I don't want that modification. That's what you should do. You're saving yourself a lot of money in the long run. You're saving yourself money getting that work done in the first place. That is, like I say, in reality is honestly just reducing performance and making you sound bad. And then over the life of owning the radio, it's going to save you money because you don't have to get it fixed all the time. So, as I've said before, when you do stuff like that, what you're basically creating is a financial time bomb. You clip all those parts, you put a bunch of other parts in it to get all kinds of power out of it, and you just set a timer. And it's just a matter of time before that timer counts down and your radio lets out the magic smoke. And the magic smoke is usually a final transistor or like an AM regulator transistor. Or I've even seen them, radios cranked up so high in power, blown traces off of the board, they just vaporize. Yeah, it's just like I say, radios weren't designed for that, and it's just going to cost you money, time and again and again. Use the radio as the manufacturers designed them. A little bit more power is okay, don't get me wrong. You can usually squeeze a little bit more power out of pretty much any radio safely. But there's a limit there. The tech that's working on it needs to know that you just look at it and go, yeah, that's about all this radio can safely do. If nothing else, just look at the rating for the power rating for the transistor that's in your radio. That's probably a good benchmark for, somebody that doesn't work on radios all the time. Pull the data sheet for the final that's in your radio. What is the maximum rated power for that transistor? Your radio should not be doing any more than that. That's, whatever the maximum rating is on that data sheet for the manufacturer of that part, they know how much that transistor can do and not self-destruct. And then, honestly, you should back it down a little bit. Because like I say, you never want to run something redline all the time. So, look at the data sheet, whatever it says, the radio should actually be doing less power than that, ideally. And your radio will live a long and happy life. And if everything goes well, it should never see a radio tech. Now granted, this one's older, so yeah, having the electrolytic capacitors replaced in it, and eventually radios do need alignment over time because the crystals inside the radio, they age just like other parts. They can go bad over time, but they just drift off frequency over time. Now, this one doesn't have sideband, so honestly, you could be seriously off frequency and nobody would really know it because it's just AM or FM. But sideband, yeah, that's where you start to notice you keep having to turn your clarifier more and more and more because as the crystal's oscillating frequency starts to drift, you're compensating for that with your clarifier. But yeah, key is there, save money, buy the radio, get an alignment. That's usually worth the money, getting a proper transceiver alignment done to it, but that's all you need. Now if you want noise toys added, I hate noise toys, but you have at it, stick all the noise toys you want in your radio, to your heart's content. But that's not going to damage your radio. That's not going to cause excessive power. It's not going to cause, ideally, it shouldn't be causing distortion as long as they're properly installed. But, so, there you go anyhow, stop molesting radios.